question is Harley Davidson, let me rephrase this. The question is not so much is Harley Davidson going to be able to survive as a company, but more of a question of, is it going to thrive and return to its former glory? That's really the question. And I've been reading a couple of articles recently which were good food for thought, and I wanted to relay a couple of thoughts to you here and share a couple, well, maybe one perspective. Let me just start by saying that the latest information that I've been hearing with regard to the motor company is that they've decided to take a little bit of a different route in their strategic thinking. Oh, we've all heard about the former chief executive officer Leviatich no longer being with the company. But it seems that the incoming CEO and current board of directors has decided that in the face of the many challenges that they are going through right now, to get back to basics and focus the precious company resources on the bagger / touring models and Softails. Of course, we all know that's where the greatest profit margins are. Their highest grosses are on the bigger bikes. But I found it interesting because their prior CEO, Leviatich, was brought in some years ago to broaden the product line, and he did that. Harley's got some several new models out now, or coming in the pipeline, and that was what his mandate was, and he went ahead and accomplished that mandate. But for some reason, apparently, there was a parting of the ways between himself and the stockholders, board of directors, so he left. Okay, we all know that. That's fairly old news at this point, right? But now they're, I don't want to say reversing what he did, but I think that what's happened now is, with the recent downturn in the economy from COVID-19, they've decided to go back to basics and push out the release of some of these later, other newer models till 2021. And they've also decided to change the release time for new models from the latter part of August of every year to more in terms of the beginning of the following year. This is our little town, by the way. This is the town of Tradition. And I'm going to pull over here and get off the bike for a minute, and I just want to show you a spot here that I think you'll like. The other day I was watching a video from Brew City Rider. He was riding through an especially nice area in the video that he was doing on the aftermath of the rioting. I got so much inspiration from that that particular area along the lake that I decided to show you this little piece here. I know it's hard to believe it, but there's been reports that over the last day or so we've received in spots as much as 9 inches of rain in 2.5 hours. I know that seems like a lot, but it can happen that way in Florida. I just can't get over all the rain. But anyway, let's get back to the topic at hand. So is this the answer? Is this the answer to the challenges? You know, when I think of Harley Davidson, I sometimes wonder, is Harley Davidson going through some of the same challenges that the traditional brick and mortar retail industry is going through? And I'm not talking about brick and mortar retail that's necessarily got a big online presence. But your standard brick and mortar retail, which has been going through significant challenges and is in threat of actual extinction at this point. Harley is faced with some structural problems that we all know what they are. There's been a lot said about the problems that Harley's been going through, but they are, and it's almost like the perfect storm. So I would say to Harley Davidson, my humble opinion, give some thought to going back not only to basics, but go back to the people. Go back to your customers. Go to the young people. Go to your young customers. Go to the older customers. Much like what was done in the late 70s, mid 70s, and early 80s, and find out what it is that your customer is looking for. What is it that excites the riding public about Harley Davidson motorcycles? And also listen to your employees.